Couple of is this on now? Am I good? Okay. A couple of announcements. I'm supposed to tell you that if you haven't filled out one of these little cards with the visitor thing in the back, that you need to fill that out and give it to the people in the back, or give it to Dean, or somebody will take care of that. But that's announcement number one. Announcement number two is that at least every couple, if not every individual, however you want to look at it, should have picked up at the table one of these outlines, or syllabus, or it's a sketch of exactly what we're going to be doing tonight and half a day tomorrow. If you do not have one of these, then feel free to go right back there at the table, or raise your hand, somebody will pass one out. If you don't have one of these outlines, raise your hand. All right, we have a room full of responsible people. That's good. Everyone got one. See? Well, Dean, yeah, you're included in that. So you got one. You got one, honey? Oh, no. Dang. There you go. All right. We're happy to be here. This is not my first time that I've been with Gastonia. And been here on different occasions for different things, gospel meetings, Wednesday night sessions. One time was here for an elders workshop. I remember doing that, and so I'm beginning to think that I might be a little well-rounded after all that, but my 38-inch waist tells me I'm even more than that. But it's good to be with you, and I would admit right off the bat that this is the first time after 43 years of preaching that Sharon and I have done a seminar per se. Now, we have dealt one-on-one with individuals and couples, and we've dealt with family, and we've preached on marriage. I don't know, I haven't kept an exact count, but over 43 years of preaching has been quite a few times. And so, and I guess to top it all off, we have been married 48 years. That counts for something, I would think. So maybe, I mean, some of the things we're going to go over, it's about like the Bible, some of the things we're going to go over when dealing with marriage, you've heard before. But sometimes we need to be reminded of certain things and encouraged in certain things, just like Peter said, I stir up your minds. I'm telling you these things to remind you of these things. And then there'll probably be some other things that you've never heard before. You know, you would think that after 40-some years of preaching that I could say, well, I've heard that before. No. As long as we're continuing to learn and to grow, there will be those things that we grow and mentally and spiritually in, and you learn something new. You have to have an open mind. You've been married for some time, and actually, some of you have been married probably pretty close to how long you and Pam been married, Kirk? I wanted to, whichever one wants to answer that. 34. So you see, we're not the only ones here. And how long have you all been married? 24. So, you know, we're not dealing. And some of you have been, how long have you been married? You're not married, okay. Well, you know, we're going to talk about that too. 3 years. Okay, so we run the gamut here. We run the gamut. And so we're going to be talking about marriage. If you I don't know, Dean, if you saw the flyer that was on there, the first set, you got 2 sessions tonight. Tonight we're dealing with marriage, who, what, where, why, how, and we're going to deal with a lot. Just talk about marriage and look at the Bible. And then the second session, we're going to deal with conflicts and adjustments, because in every marriage, I don't care if you're married 24 or 43 or however many years. We've been married 48, and it hasn't been conflict-free. You know, we can tell you. Now, I don't want you to get too excited. We might let you in on a couple secrets and things, but we're not going to tell all, okay? That's not the purpose. Sharon's got a class tomorrow with just the ladies. I'm anxious about that. So I need somebody to take good notes, okay? No, I'm not really. But see, I've got the men tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll split it up. But tomorrow morning, when we get back together at 9 o'clock, we'll be talking about parenting, because usually it leads to that. Not all the time it leads to that, but kids are involved. So we're going to be talking about parenting tomorrow. And then at 10 we'll split up, and with the men going or staying, whichever, but there'll be 2 different locations. Then at 11 o'clock, we'll talk about growing old together. That may be my favorite session. Maybe my favorite session of all. And then I've got some closing remarks at high noon or a little bit before. And each of these sessions is going to be light. And I am not looking to, I can go on for an hour and keep on talking, but that's not what I intend to do. I intend for we have open discussion on some things. And every one of you have an outline so you can follow along with that. I didn't do a PowerPoint. I decided to kind of keep you involved and active as we go along with the outline. And you can do some writing, or you can make some notes on it. I'll try to, and I do this to keep me organized, to keep me from going off on tangent, but yet I still want your input. I still want to have question and answer time. I still want to look at things. I'm not going to read Rob's reaction. Rob's reaction is for years, whether it was at Lake Norman or Thomasville or wherever, I've always had a bulletin article called Rob's Reaction. So you've got a little Rob's Reaction. You can read that on your own about our marriage and some of the things involved there. Let you in a little bit. But you can read that about marriage. You get a little synopsis, a little idea of what's going on. So we'll get right to it tonight. We want to talk about marriage today and half a day tomorrow. There is no way, and I know this sounds, there is no way, and this is a short amount of time, that we can talk about everything. And there are some things that we, and I remain open on this. If you want to talk to myself or Sharon or I or about anything, we'll do that. We'll talk, we'll listen on a private matter. We'll do that. I'll even come back to Gastonia. I've been here often enough. I think I can find my way back, except I don't like that traffic on and coming through on a Friday night coming through. Whew, that's tough getting through Charlotte area. But you already know that, and you live with it. But and we used to, because 15 years at Lake Norman, we dealt with that. But we live in a rural section up in, it's near Greensboro, but the little town is called Trinity. And it's kind of peaceful and country, and, traffic there is 4 cars at a red light at the same time. It's a little bit different. So, but we'll deal with as much as we can in the short amount of time that we can. So, we're going to begin with the first session tonight as we look at marriage and a little bit of who and a little bit of what and that sort of thing. But before we begin, I'm going to ask my friend and your friend and Dean's father-in-law.
He's my friend too.
And he is your friend, and he is Grandpa too. I found that out real quick tonight. And of course I know that. I've seen that happening. I'm going to ask him if he'll lead us in a prayer as we begin to meet and talk about the serious matter of marriage. Kirk.
Let's bow together. Father God, we are incredibly honored to be in your presence tonight, to be together. Thankful for Rob and Sharon for their love for you and for each other that's been manifested through the years, the effective ministry that together they have done several different areas in the Carolinas and beyond. Father, we're grateful that in a world where marriage is in trouble, that individuals on a Friday night will pause and take time to consider those things that are very important. You began it in the garden. You have guided us through your word in the process, Father, but the world as a whole is so confused, so mixed up, and so immoral. And so we're grateful to spend this time tonight listening and sharing and talking and looking at your word and the requirements that you have for us to have, the commitment we have with each other, the privilege and the honor as we have taken this journey in life with those that we love. And Father, we're grateful again for Rob and Sharon, that you'll guide both of them and that you'll open each of our hearts and our thoughts as we consider this wonderful journey. Father, thank you for your Son, your Spirit. There's so many on each of our minds, I'm sure even that are hurting and in need of help, maybe even not maritally, but physically or even spiritually, and that we, each one of us, bring those to you tonight for healing and for help and for just peace. Now, Father, we're grateful for this night, for the great safe journey here, for that as we continue through the evening in your Son's precious name, mindful of our own, always our need for forgiveness and the gratitude that we have for the fact that you have forgiven us and that we're your children. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, Kirk. Happy that Kirk and Pam are here. Sharon and I, some years ago, went to, it was called the Faulkner-Burkeen Marriage Seminar. And Paul Faulkner and Carl Burkeen were from Texas, and they would conduct marriage seminars. They actually had a video series, and I think the first one that we went to was in Ohio, was a video series. And then we went live to them. We were, where were we? The last one was at Wilmington. I think it was Wilmington, over on campus of there. We were over there and in North Carolina on Wilmington and the campus there. And they were live there, and we were a part of that. We've been to some others too, but I always was impressed when Burkeen and Faulkner would come into different areas. One of the emphasis that they made was their assignment, their purpose, their goal was to make good marriages better. And so, I'm not, look, Kirk and I have been friends a long time, so he's put me on the spot and I put him on the spot. But for somebody who's married 34 years and have come to something like this, even though we've known each other, gives me an indication. Now, some of you, this is your first time you've been in anything like this at all. And then for somebody to come after 34 years of marriage, it tells me, it's still a work in progress. And you'll never have it just perfect. As a matter of fact, one of the first things we say on your outline is this. Who? When we talk about marriage here, who gets married? Not everybody gets married. Not everybody makes that commitment. And some people do not get married. Matter of fact, I can remember being in one of Burkeen Faulkner's marriage seminars, and so this young lady, okay, without putting anybody on the spot or anything, but I don't know you. Have we ever met? I have no clue. We've never met. I don't know her. she could be sitting here and contemplating being married. She could be sitting here and, are you a member here? Dean, am I going to get her in trouble?
Maybe.
Maybe. He doesn't care. All right. But you see, I don't know you, so I really can't, other than Kirk and Pam and Dean and Hillary, obviously we go back a little ways. We know each other.
If you could make her turn as red as that shirt, that'd be great.
But you see, the point of it is that you may be here tonight and you're not married. You're not married, at least not right now. And you may be here tonight and you used to be married, or you're contemplating remarriage or whatever. So I don't know your situation. You may have never been married. So let's just take that as a question on the very person, why don't some people get married? Why is it? That's the first question we have. Why don't people marry? What do you think? Is marriage for everyone? No, you say no. Do you know of anybody? Do you know a solid Christian man or woman who's never been married? We all do. Got them in my family. Got 2 nephews, outstanding men. Dan, he's retired now, isn't he? Been coach of the year, high school coach in Ohio for years, won all these honors. You could say he was married to his job, school teacher. That was his focus. Never wanted to be married. Some people don't get married. Why not?
Dear.
Go ahead, Dean.
Prior family experience, what they saw with their own mom and dad.
Okay. Some people are afraid to be married because of their growing up experiences. It happens. People see it all the time. Why else? Why don't some people marry?
If they want to devote their life to something else besides somebody else.
Okay, instead of somebody else. Some people operate better not as a team. They do great individually. Why else wouldn't somebody want to be married?
Because they love themselves more than.
Huh?
Because they love themselves more than anybody else.
Okay, it's not really selfish as much as it is, you take someone who is in the business world and they have a very responsible position and they want to succeed. They're driven by that. Some people don't want to lose their freedom. And believe me, when husbands and wives, you have to give up. And some people are not ready to give up that. How about economics? Economics plays a factor. I've done premarital counseling a lot over the years. Kurt's done Kurt took one of our youngest daughter and he coached her. He taught her in the but so we know, during premarital counseling, you have to talk about the money aspect. Let's look at things in a bag. You have to talk about the fact that you can't have it your way all the time if you're married. You have to learn to give up and give in. Matter of fact, remember that question that was asked to us? Remember in Orlando? And they asked us at the table, they came up to the table and they asked us, how long have we been married? And I think, did we set the record or did somebody else beat us out? We were right up there and somebody asking, so the announcer came on. This was at a country music show in Disney. And so said, what do you attribute? This is one of those questions just to put a microphone in your face there and say, what do you attribute, the fact that you've been married for 48 years? What do you attribute that? They put it in my face, not yours. They put it in my face and what do you attribute? I said, you got to learn to give in and give up. Sounded pretty good to me, But the truth of the matter is you do have to learn that it can't be your way all the time. Some people just don't make it through the courtship stage at all. I mean, they go together and they'll date and they'll go here and go there together, and they just figure it out, well, marriage is not for me. Maybe not emotionally ready for it, because that is a part of it. Maybe not mature enough to accept the responsibilities that go with it and the commitment that you're making. That gives you a little hint on the next question. And the commitment that you're making as well. While some do not marry, understand that. Most people do. Most people marry, although statistically, I know it changes a lot. Statistically, there's a growing number that remain single and choose not to marry. I'm saying it's growing right now. It's continuing to grow larger and larger. But still, the majority of people do marry. But the challenge is not getting married, is it? Those of you who've been married a few years, those of us who've been married just a short amount of time. The challenge is not getting married. Oh yeah, there's the money. There's the wedding ceremony itself. There's the preparation. There's the planning and everything. I mean, it can be a hassle. It can be nerve-wracking, Sharon and I, when we were married, I was overseas when we decided to get married. Actually, of course, Mom and Dad would like for us to wait and everything. We could go into that, but we won't go into it. But we didn't. And what we did the first time, they didn't like it when, 17-year-olds getting married. So we waited a little while on that. And then I was in the Navy, and we did it long distance. She was home planning a wedding and going to college, and I'm overseas and in the Navy. And I mean, it was timing was important in the essence. So I flew back and from Guam and got married. And 15 days leave, honeymoon. Go right back overseas. Not the best way to do it, and don't recommend it, and couldn't recommend it. Not see each other for 6 months. And then she met me in Hawaii. Met me there in Hawaii, saw each other for 6 days, 7 days. She flew back to college. Finished college, and I thought, well, now that she's finished college, I'll bring her over to Guam and paradise living in a tropical island and, live on the beach. Nothing to Guam is just a little peanut out there in the middle of the ocean, nothing to it. That didn't work out. My order said, you're going to Vietnam. That was not pleasant. So, there's a challenge, but the challenge is not getting married. The challenge is in staying married. And so when we talk about marriage, we've said that word. What is marriage? Let's just be very basic here. The second question here that we look at, what is marriage? Yes, ma'am.
Contract between two people.
A contract between two people.
Agreements.
An agreement. Okay. Anybody else? What is marriage? I mean, if you're married, you said I do. What'd you say I do too?
It's a wanting to share with somebody, all of you, not wanting to go it alone, but wanting to be in a team.
Yeah, I used the term earlier, team. It's a team. Individually is one thing, but to working together as a team and sharing. So a willingness to share your life. Is that fair? And your life means everything. The good and the bad, the ugly. I don't think our marriage counselor said sharing the good, the bad, the ugly, but that is one way of putting it. It's pretty plain. And we did go to and I highly recommend it. I highly recommend, no, really, I highly recommend premarital counseling. We went through that. I don't know how long it was. What was it with Tim?
45 minutes.
45 minutes? Seemed like 3 days to me. No, premarital counseling, it wasn't anything. I do 5 sessions. I don't know how many Kirk does, but we do different sessions with people. You do 5 too, okay. And but I highly recommend something like that. So we got a contract here. We got a agreement to share here. What else do you think marriage is?
A lifetime commitment.
There's commitment involved. And that goes along with contract. You're making a promise. You know, and of course, most of the vows, I know the vows are nothing set in stone, but most of the traditional vows, you do make a promise. You make a promise, and who are you making a promise to? You're making a promise to God. You're making a promise to the one that you're marrying. It's a promise-based relationship. I promise in sickness and in health. I promise in the good times and the bad times. So, why does Susie, do we have any Susies or Joeys here? I'm just picking out those names. I'm safe again. Why does Susie commit to Joey in marriage? Why does Joey commit to Susie and Susie to Joey in marriage? Why commit to one another? Because
They don't want to share with anyone else. They don't want anyone else coming between them.
but they want to share with each other. So they believe the promise. They believe the promise. They believe what they say to each other. And I'm not really taking a lot for granted, but I know, there's communication before marriage takes place, the ceremony itself, and it is and it's more than just a contract or promise and sharing, but it is a formal commitment to each other and somebody else. It's solemnized, it's a big word, before God. It's solemnized before God. Husband, wife, man, woman, and God. All involved in that promise. Now, you do have a public record. Every state is different, although there's a lot of similarities in all the states in the United States now as far as making a public record there. But just pledging our love and promising to stay together in marriage, there's also that public record that is giving. And the laws of the land. There used to be, when Sharon and I were married, we had to take a blood test. You realize now you don't have to do that. Things have changed. But whatever the laws of the land require, you're doing that to make it legal. But of course, we missed one thing. What does the Bible say about marriage? In Genesis chapter 2. It's not good for man to be alone. I will do what? I will make a helpmeet. It's a different subject matter, but God's laws have priority over man's laws. And when we talk about marriage, we're talking about a joint union between one man and one woman, not one man and one man, or one woman and one woman. Now, in a lot of places, you know, you can, I'm exaggerating to make the point, you can get shot for that. But because that's not politically correct in our society today. But that's what the Bible says a marriage is. Marriage is between one man and one woman. And Acts 5 verse 29, the principle is stated there that we need to obey God rather than man when it comes to that. So marriage is a promise-based relationship, a willingness to share our very lives, everything, with that other person, that man, that woman, depending on the situation. And of course it is solemnized. I mean, there's a public record, there's a legalization here that's involved. So why not just test this thing out and say, why don't we just live together for 6 months and see if we don't kill each other, and then we'll know if we get married? Why don't we just go that route? Instead of going through that, you know, and being ready, why don't we just, I've heard the terminology before, why don't we just test drive this marriage? I mean, you take the car out and test drive it beforehand and make sure it doesn't fall apart and do all that. Why don't we just test drive a marriage, Kirk?
You've seen the stats, haven't you?
The what?
Statistics.
Yes.
The couples who live together prior to marriage, the divorce rate's higher.
Mm-hmm. Significantly higher. We're not talking about just a little bit.
No, it's like three-fourths. It's like 75%.
Yeah, that's what I mean, significantly higher. Why is that?
That's not the answer.
You know, it's definitely not the answer, but what makes that not the answer? Why isn't it good that you test drive a marriage like that?
One thing is your commitment isn't strong. If it's not strong enough that you think, well, let's stop in 6 months anyway. You know, at least we got out that way. I don't think too many people go into anything with that idea. Well, there's always an escape hatch.
If you've been thinking this is a trial run, just like Sharon said, your thought's not going to be in finishing.
Nope. The thing that keeps marriage together is the commitment. And if you do a trial, you know, like that, live together 6, where's the commitment in that? And believe me, when problems do arise, and problems are going to arise, and guess what? It's going to happen real soon. Real soon. And when problems do come up in a marriage, if there is no commitment, then you've got no glue holding that together. And that trial run, you know, I'm not going to blanket and say this is the way it is for everybody, but sexual relations in marriage is holy, but not outside of marriage. And there's no marriage if there's no commitment, if there's no promise. So it doesn't hold, and statistically it doesn't hold as well. Hebrews 13 and verse 4 says the marriage bed is undefiled. Doesn't say this trial run is undefiled. Okay, so we've looked at why people don't marry. So the next question, okay, so marriage, why do people marry? Pam, you mentioned one thing, so I'll just, you know, because you want to share your life and everything you have and everything you are. Everything is shared together. So that's one. Why else why do people want to marry? Don't want to be alone. Yeah. Or you want to have a family. And while
you want the grandbabies.
I beg your pardon?
You want the grandbabies.
Yeah. You know, I never would have thunk it. We have 6 grandkids, but it is pretty neat. If we'd known this, we'd got married at 17 earlier, and no matter what, if we'd known how fun it was going to be. But no, it's pretty neat. What else?
You see something in the other person that only in that person can make you not just a better person, but a complete person, a whole person, to handle the things that come in this life.
Okay. Which goes along with sharing. We see something in the other person, we want to share that, and we want to share that for the rest of our lives here. So companionship, you get to share not only, did you ever watch a ball game by yourself? You ever watch a ball game by yourself and your team wins and there's a fantastic play or there's a fast putt or chip or something, and you're hooping and hollering, you're all by yourself. No one else has seen it with you, nobody. But when someone's with you and you see that, you share in that event. You share in that joy. But you also share in the sorrows. You share when there are good times, and you share in the bad times too. So, yes, there are times where we need to be alone. And Sharon and I have our alone times. But the best moments are the shared times. We keep telling ourselves, when we I don't care if it's getting into a car and driving down the road to Gastonia. It's just the two of us all alone. And guess what? We can listen to the radio or not. We can eat where we want to eat. There are those times where it's just neat being alone. And we don't have to worry about other people. It's just us. Or we can go on this trip all by ourselves now. Or we can sit there in the car and just listen to the quiet. I know I'm getting old now. Because things used to be different. But when you have kids and then you have grandkids, and marriage, there's joys, there's sorrow, but companionship, you look forward to sharing your life with someone else. And people get married too because there is some security there. And Dean, you mentioned sharing or seeing something in someone else. Well, you also see things in yourself that make you incomplete, that you see in others that, like you said, will make you full, will make you complete. And that helps with commitment too. You can't do it alone. Sharon, you had something.
God made us with all kinds of needs, and usually when we think about that in marriage, we think about the sexual needs. But there's also, the need to belong, and belonging to someone is, and stronger even some people than others. Being a part of something bigger than yourselves, being part of creating, a new life. Just the security that you mentioned, all kinds of needs that can be met.
Yeah.
And, like at our stage, it's like, I'm going to need somebody to help me up. I'm gonna need somebody to take care of me.
Yeah.
But those are real things that, you're searching for someone to share that whole life experience with.
Kirk, I, and Dean, all three of us were part of the Carolina lectures this year, and there's a guy there. He's just a neat guy, sweet man, George Stevens, and a real encourager. Always has something positive to say, but he saw Sharon the other day for the first time in a while, hadn't seen each other in a while, and of course George has had his own setbacks and problems that he's had to deal with, life situations, and he made a comment. I went back in and talked to him. Sharon was not there. He made a comment about Sharon, and a positive comment, and I said, "Yep, I'm married up." And because, we see things in each other that she can meet that need. She can help me. It's not a selfish thing. It's unselfish. We need help. I needed a lot of help. So, okay, there are different reasons why people marry. So, the other question is, why a seminar on marriage? Why are you here? What's the big deal about a marriage seminar? I mean, I could ask that about a gospel meeting, or I could ask that about, a youth rally. But I'm asking it about us. What's the big deal about, and not just this seminar, but just a marriage seminar? Dean?
Being the father of one that's 2 and younger than 2, and just in the normal hustle and bustle of life and the monotony that takes place, it is an escape for husband and wife to focus on themselves rather than worried about trying to focus on the needs of other people or the weight of what's going on at work or the weight of what's going on somewhere else. It's time to just take a deep breath and focus on each other and your relationship.
Okay. Anybody else? Why would you? Yes, sir.
Over the years that I've been married, I've found sometimes the hard way that marriage is a definite learning process. So any time you gain knowledge of other people, there's, just like you said, you have challenges that hurt us along the way.
Good point.
Encouragement and a tool when a lot of people around you are not in a marriage or are in a negative marriage.
Good point.
Marriage is hard. I mean, it's hard. You think of just getting 2 people in a room, there's going to be disagreement. Well, that's a life commitment we've made. It's not all fun and games. And sometimes you just need like a recheck and just a reminder it's worth it. And like he said, that bit of knowledge, and you may share some wisdom somebody else may, that none of us knows what each couple or person is going through. And I think it takes courage to come and say, yeah, I don't have all the answers, and you may have some for me, and it may get me that commitment stronger.
Yeah. And whether you've been married 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, I think we can help one another. Sharon and I have been married 48 years, so there may be some things that we can help you with, but we're here because we think that you might be able to help us as well. And I'll explain that more in detail, but
I think that too, the longer you're married sometimes, you get so used to certain things and you fall into a rut. And then sometimes you forget why you got married and what the whole, and then you come to something like this and you're reminded and you go, oh yeah, this is, it's just, the longer you're married, I think sometimes you need something.
yeah. And you take things for granted too.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Sharon?
We've also found there's lots of stages in marriage, and like Dean said, when you're first married and kids are coming on, you've got one pile of issues to deal with. But then...
Got a pile of what? Issues, yes, that's what I thought I said.
A little while longer, it's going to be, well, where are the kids going to get the best education? What am I going to do about this? And more economic issues as that goes on. And then you have what they call empty nest, which we're still waiting for, but, then I remember one, I don't remember who it was, but somebody said that the woman was standing there when her last child went off, married, and she was just falling, and he said, yep, you got just what you started with.
Yeah. Yeah. Sharon's comment about the empty nest is we do have a daughter that still lives with us. She has some physical issues she's dealing with, and we have a granddaughter in the house, and so we don't have that empty nest yet. So these times that we do get away, we like it a lot. You have to understand, I think you know this, but just to say it, I think getting together and sharing like this is important because, I mean, God sees marriage as important. It's just, I'm trying to be basic here, not mundane, but obviously God thinks marriage is important. Secondly, I put down on my notes here that marriage is important to the husband and wife because we are under commitment to one another, and anything we can do to help improve or strengthen that commitment is going to be beneficial. And then Dean, what Dean mentioned, or just to mention the young couple with kids, marriage is important for the kids too. Marriage is important for the children because the home atmosphere affects them, not just mom and dad. And that's why I've included saying some things about parenting, because believe me, I learned a lot about parenting. That, and this is helpful because we grow up in different homes and different environments. And then you put two people together. I'll be quite frank with you. Sharon was lovey-dovey with the girls. Oh, poor me. Me, I just wanted to spank the snot out of them. And just get it over with. Now, that may be male and female, but, I had to learn to back off. And I think she's learned sometimes you have to be a little bit, put your foot down a little bit more. Now, I use that. Don't quote. This is not being recorded, is it? You're knocking the snot out. I didn't, that would get me in trouble, probably. So, marriage seminar, I think, is important. I wanted to go with these 5 basic foundation pillars that's not original with me, come from one of my instructors. And we'll talk about these. I do these, Batzel Barrett Baxter, and I know that you've heard him because I've said it long enough. One time Dean walked in the office, and Dean has always had a question or two an hour. And he's still doing it. But he had, he walked in, he was pulling my leg, I think. He said, "Who's Batzel Baxter?" Never heard of him. It's about like me one time. I said, talk about Neil Lightfoot. And he said, "Neil who?" Yeah, really, this, some old preachers, that's a joke there. But here's Batzel Baxter's. I think, and let me tell you, these 5 things I use as far as part of the discussion of premarital counseling. 5 foundational pillars for a successful marriage. 1 is preparation. You cannot enter into marriage unprepared. You just don't fall in love and then live happily ever after. I don't care what TV show you see or what book you read. You just don't fall in love and then you live happily ever after. There has to be some work involved, some preparation, and what's made for TV is one thing. What is out there in the real world is something else. It takes time and effort to prepare for marriage, and like I said, premarital counseling I do encourage. Open communication on all 5 of these things are vitally important. And you stop in and look at it this way. This was asked to me some time ago, and they asked the wrong person. Some of you know, I'm not a flyer. Okay, I'm not really crazy about getting in a perfectly good plane, and and seeing how fast it would go. I'm not a flyer. I do fly. I have flown. I can say I have flown. But not that much. And I mean, going to Costa Rica on a mission trip, you got to get in a plane, okay? That's it. But the question that was asked to me one time was this: how would you feel getting in a plane with a pilot who had no preparation? How would you feel about that? Wouldn't make me feel good. Well, how about a marriage with no preparation? You're about asking for the same thing. You don't want to crash and burn. So I believe that is, Barrett Baxter was right. That is absolutely necessary. Second thing is there has to be genuine love. Genuine love. These are his words. We're not talking about infatuation, but a willingness to care about the other person and to share the joys and the happiness and the burdens. And to love as Christ loved the church. And we'll read that passage in a few minutes. To love as Christ loved the church. And then 3 is commitment for life. There are those times where you have conflicts with the kids, with our different personalities, because two people that marry, they may look alike. Actually, they say when you start getting older, you start dressing alike and looking alike and all sorts of things like that. They're right. But you do have conflicts in life, and if there is no commitment to stick it out, then you'll have problems. Number 4 is communication. Kirk asked Dean one time, "Are you sure that you can support a family?" Dean says, "No, sir. Just your daughter." Lack of communication on that question. There's going to be misunderstandings along the way, and so there has to be communication. Sometimes we say things, and it's, I know what I'm saying, and I know what I'm thinking. But then Sharon will take it a different way, and she'll respond, and I have no clue where she's coming from. And so because what I said, and I know what I said. And so, didn't you hear me? Yeah, she heard me, but she perceived it. It went through her brain a different way than what I intended it to come out. So, communication, and there has to be that open and honest communication. Number 5, I put down, there has to be a higher loyalty. And when you have both husband and wife following the Lord, then their lives are changed for the better. And if you read this Rob's reaction, you can see in my very last comment, it takes time, and it's taken time with us to get to the point where I can honestly say that we've gotten better. What did I say? Our marriage is not just endured because it had to go. It's been up and down, but it has thrived, and our love for one another has grown even stronger. That happens because of commitment, because of communication, because of a higher loyalty. But if you leave God out of the home, you are inviting disaster. Let's concentrate on those things and take a 5-minute break and then come back in. Let's just take a 5-minute break and maybe go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, just stretch your legs, whatever. But take a 5-minute break, we'll come back in and go on to the second session.